Hello, MBA 501 students. It is Sunday, September 17th. Happy Chiefs Day. So we're going to look at week 2 now. So everybody's doing quite well in the forum discussions. I would like to see your beautiful faces. Maybe this week try to do it with the camera. There is an option if you go to advanced and click on the camera. You may have to play around with which browser you want. Like I noticed Explorer worked better or Edge on mine for some reason. It works different on different computers. But I want to try to give you an opportunity for you to try that. That's one of the purposes I did instead of typing. Make it a little bit easier so you don't have to do so much typing to do the audio video. You can still do the audio. But I'd like to get to know you a little bit better too as you get to know me through these videos too. So good job with forum discussions. Keep those up. You're also going to continue with vocabulary drop-down quizzes. Hopefully everything's okay with the access codes. I apologize for that, but I think with the Moodle and the upgrade and kind of trying this product, a little bit of confusion going on, but I think most of it should be okay, that you should have access codes. You don't have to use the temporary 2-week codes. So for this week, I also want you to kind of pay attention to the news. The Federal Open Market Committee meets this week. They're the ones that determine interest rates, the Federal Reserve. It's very unlikely that they're going to raise any rates. Right now, they're getting pretty high, like 5.5%, 5.75. They're probably going to wait and see where the inflation numbers come in about the next month or so. And if they are still strong, we're probably going to see one more rate increase. But again, as you start raising these interest rates, it makes borrowing cost higher. It deters your consumption. And if you deter consumption, that means you're not going to be buying things. It actually means that people are going to lose their jobs too. So it's a trade-off. It's a dual mandate the Federal Reserve has to deal with. Obviously maintaining employment, but also maintaining inflation. And right now it's all about maintaining inflation because there's wealth effects. So pay attention to that later in the week. And we'll kind of see what happens. But for this week, you have Chapter 3. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of economics, supply and demand. So if I see you in the street 5 years from now, I'm going to ask you a question on this. So that's what I want you to leave with this course with, at least some basic foundation of supply and demand. So you're actually going to look at the demand curves. It's a inverse relationship. So as price goes up, you expect quantity and demand go down. You have supply. That is, as a business, if you're willing to pay a higher price, those in the market will supply more to the market. We get this kind of equilibrium point, where we call it a solution in math between two functions. We could actually write these as functions, and there are economists that derive functions for demand or supply. Even when you go to the grocery store, if you're going to local Hy-Vee and you're running across the scanner and they change the price, they can kind of look at different things such as creating a demand equation and also your elasticity of demand, your responsiveness to any changes in price. But a couple of things that I want to go over in this chapter, Chapter 3, is that some definitions. If it's a change in quantity demanded or a change in quantity supplied, it's specific to price. You're just moving along that demand curve or a supply curve. Okay. What you're going to read about are these factors, what I like to call other than price. What's going to shift this curve outward or inward? Say, for example, demand. If income goes up, something becomes very popular like Taylor Swift. If there's expectations about changes in the future, that can all shift the demand curve out. But if Oprah says, don't read this book, it can definitely shift the demand curve in for that book. With supply side, you're going to look at such things as technology. It could also be taxes and subsidies, the same for demand. Expectations, if I think soybeans are going to be the thing in the future, maybe all the farmers plant soybeans. It can be supply shocks like we saw in the 70s and 73 and 79 with oil was just not available anymore, so the price went way up. Or say that a frost hits Florida and all the oranges are gone, so you see the supply curve shift in for oranges. You go to the store, oranges are more expensive, and there's fewer oranges in the market. So you'll read a lot about that. And I also want you to think about the different types of goods, because sometimes these can shift demand or supply curves in other markets. So the 4 types of goods are a substitute good, like you consider it similar in nature. If there's a Magic Puffs versus Lucky Charms, okay, or there's a complementary good that if you have SUVs, you have to have gasoline. And if gasoline gets really expensive, probably the demand for SUVs and big trucks are going to decline. So two shifts in different markets. You can have inferior goods and normal goods. As my income goes up, you expect that we buy more normal goods, buy maybe a better furniture, better beer. But inferior goods, maybe you were many years ago when you were younger, you had to eat ramen noodles. And I remember I was in graduate school at UCM. I'd have Aldi's brand spaghetti sauce and Aldi brand pasta, and the spaghetti sauce came in a can. And when I got married, my wife says, you don't have to buy spaghetti sauce in a can anymore. Maybe it was nostalgia or something. It didn't taste that great, but it's like we can buy some better quality spaghetti sauce. So you would say that the Aldi's brand at that time, many years ago, was not the best quality. Okay, so the next chapter, chapter 35, is going to give you some exposure to international trade. And many of the companies you work for, you may not realize that are multinational enterprises. They do business overseas too. They may even have direct foreign investment in other countries. But this chapter is going to, main concepts are what we call comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Absolute advantage means something like this. I'll use the example like a golfer, like say Tiger Woods. He looks more athletic than me, and he can play golf better than me. So he has an absolute advantage in mowing lawns and playing golf compared to me. But in comparative advantage, Tiger would sacrifice a whole bunch of money if he spent his time mowing my lawn versus making golf. So what Tiger's going to do is say, Joe, you have the comparative advantage in mowing the lawns. I have the comparative advantage mowing or playing golf. We're going to trade with each other, and we're going to make each other better off. So in comparative advantage, the nation can produce it at a lower opportunity cost. So if you look at Japan and us, we produce a lot of wheat. We use a lot of capital-intensive equipment like combines. Japan doesn't have a lot of land, but they're really good at producing like small engines like in Honda, like portable generators or lawnmowers. So we're not going to swap wheat for lawnmowers, but what we're going to do is we're going to let the market forces take place. And by, let's just say, in allowing Japan to produce all the small engines and the United States produce all the wheat, even though we have this production possibility curve in the United States that we could produce wheat and lawnmowers, we're going to say, you know what? Let's focus on what we have a comparative advantage in. And if we engage in trade, we can get actually outside our production possibility curve. That is, we're not going to keep our economy closed. We're going to open up for international trade, and there's no way we would be able to enjoy the amount of goods and services that we have today without trade. You think about where your clothes are made. Most of them are going to be made in China or Vietnam and other places, including your shoes. So we benefit greatly, and this is why economists are not real big fans of anything that's going to deter trade, and you're going to read about that, such as embargoes, quotas, voluntary restraining agreements, or tariffs. And these are basically taxes, and it's kind of a tit for tat. One of the things you will probably be seeing is that we're probably going to move away from China a little bit and more to Vietnam. You saw Biden go out there last week, and part of that is just because of our tensions, what's going on with in the world, and the Russia-Ukraine war, and kind of viewing China as not really being favorable to the West. So we're looking for alternatives to find those goods. So we are dependent on a lot of consumer goods coming from overseas now. But hopefully that gave you some insights. Do continue to send me emails if you have any question. But otherwise, have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you online. Take care.